All right, welcome back to Broncos Country Tonight. Let's talk about what we expect to see from the defense in this final game of the season taking on the Raiders. Before we get to specific defensive players for the Broncos, what have you thought about Derek Carr's season so far? You know, I mean, I think overall when you look at his numbers, 37, 32 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 picks. You know, it's pretty decent. 70, let's see here, his completion rate right now is 67.6, so that's pretty decent. But over 3 of the last 4 games, he's hovering right around 60% in his completion rate. He's got 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's taken 6 sacks. And I guess I kind of look at this a little bit here. Also, by the way, this team has lost 5 of their last 6 games. So they are in a bit of a slide, a little bit of a tailspin. So what have you thought about his season so far? And what do you think about more of the recent production?
Well, it's a classic case of the stats not telling the whole story. Derek Carr's a guy who's playing more vertical football these days, taking more deep shots, and that's because he's got guys that are able to do that. Henry Ruggs and Nelson Aguilar on the outside allows you that opportunity. Those are plays that are high percentage plays. You're going to not complete those as often. That's going to drive down some of that stuff. So you go back and you look at his tape against the Broncos, mostly dink and dunk, high percentage, short stuff, which Vic Fangio defense is notorious for being susceptible to because the bend don't break with cover 4 rules and keeps everything in front of you. Some of the defenses they've played have allowed them to be more vertical. And again, those drive the numbers down. Now, as for the other side of it, losing and all that, some of that's on the defense. Some of that's on that Raiders defense that isn't very talented. But and they've had some injury too. But as far as Carr goes, started the season red hot from a numbers perspective. A lot of that production wasn't sustainable. Some of it was some lucky play. Some of it was just a veteran being savvy. But as they start to get more and more tape on these guys, you tend to expect a production drop off for a quarterback over the course of a season. That's generally how every quarterback goes. But in terms of Carr overall, he's a good quarterback. He's very good. He's underrated nationally in terms of what he is because he's not Pat Mahomes or Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers. He's just a very good quarterback. And so there's nothing wrong with not being elite, but that's kind of who he is. He's just a very good quarterback and not a great one. And you got to be careful. Don't sleep on Derek Carr. He's better than people give him credit for.
So you know how he likes to attack the Broncos. He likes to get the ball out fast. He's going to be hitting Darren Waller, taking the shots with Aguilar and with Ruggs, as you mentioned. You're going to see a healthy dose of Hunter Renfrow in there and sort of the slot. You saw Cole Beasley shred the Broncos out of the slot. So you know that you're going to see a lot of that. So, if you're the Broncos, how are you approaching Derek Carr in this game knowing you're so undermanned?
Keep it in front of you. Get him down in the red zone and hope to bog him down, turn touchdowns into field goals. Just continue to do that. Continue to stick with what works for you. You understand you're not going to get a lot of sacks on him because he's going to get the ball out quick against you. He's going to play a little different. Don't give up the big explosive plays. Don't change what you're doing and put yourself at susceptible to Aguilar or Ruggs burning you deep because you're shorthanded at corner. So I think that's the main thing. Make sure that you keep the play in front of you. Understand that you're going to give up yardage and just try to trade yardage for points.
Which has kind of been like the mantra of this defense for the last several weeks, right? I mean, it's one of those things, one of the reasons why they're still the number 1 red zone defense in the league, but they've tried to, hey, we'll take field goals. I mean, you think with the Chargers, I mean, how many times did their drives bog down when they got in there? And we're talking, again, Parnell Motley in the back of the end zone covering Mike Williams, and he has to make that play or else it's a touchdown. And Mike Williams is one of the best contested catch guys in the league. They have contested catch guys. The Raiders are going to move the ball. Like, we know they're going to move the ball. The focus, the emphasis has to continue to be you get inside the red zone, you settle for 3, which gives your offense a chance to win the game. So let's talk about guys that you specifically need to see something from this game. We mentioned on the previous show, Draymond Jones. I just want to continue to see him take steps forward because he finished last season on such an upswing that if he does the same thing, it'll help you with some of your decisions you have to make.
This is going to be a game where a lot of times you talk about the pass rush getting home. This is going to be a game where that's not going to be. They're going to get it out quick. So that's not the focus. To me, the focus is on the secondary holding up because they know that the pass rush isn't going to get home as often as they'd like. So you're shorthanded back there. I think you need a big game from Will Parks. I think you need a big game from Michael Ojemudia. And I think you need big games from Parnell Motley and Devontae Bosby specifically after that game against the Chargers. So I think that secondary specifically at the corner position is really where you need to make sure you're having a tight game. You can't let Aguilar or Ruggs get free on you. They will burn you.
I'm glad you brought up Will Parks because I'm not saying that the Broncos will necessarily go that direction, but I'd love to keep Will Parks for another year. I think there'll be some people this offseason, they'll try to make the argument that with the savings, you could do better than Kareem Jackson there. I'd like to continue to retain Kareem Jackson. I think that he fits so well with Justin Simmons, and your safety tandem has been one of the best in the league the entire season. So I'd like to pick up that team option. I'd like to keep Will Parks, though, because he's a good special teams player. He's shown some of that this year. He had that great play a couple of games ago where he got the sack right there before halftime, which was huge. That was against the Panthers, if I remember correctly. And he's just an overall kind of glue guy. So if he has a nice game here, maybe that will stick in the minds of the front office when they're making decisions in the offseason about retaining him on a nice little 2-3 year deal.
Yeah, I think you take the money because Kareem isn't owed any guaranteed money next year. I think you take the contract and you say, hey, look, we'll give you we'll rip this up. We'll sign a 2-year extension. We'll take this money. We'll guarantee it over 2 years, and that gives them an out if he has a sudden drop off, and it guarantees him the money. I think it works for everybody. So I think that's the direction they'll go with it if they decide to retain him. Will Parks is great insurance at either safety position and as a nickel and a heavy nickel and a dime backer, in those roles as well. So I think you try to bring him back on a multi-year deal if you can. If not, you do another cheapo 1-year prove it, see if we'll do it, and go from there. I think you can keep most of this team intact and trim some fat in some other places.
One thing I absolutely want to see as we're rounding out the season and remembering a little bit of how the game went last time, the Raiders rushed for over 200 yards against you, averaging 5 per carry, 4 rushing touchdowns. Man, if you're going to do something in this game, you cannot let Devontae Booker embarrass you again in a game, especially here in front of, you're in Denver. It's not a home crowd, but you understand my point. You can't do that. You've got to be able to sew up and stop the run because, again, it won't really matter at that point because if they're running downhill on you, everything else doesn't matter. You're going to lose.
And that's exactly what you need to understand. You got to understand that you're taking away the deep plays. Keep the plays in front of you. You're going to give up some rushing yardage, but you got to tighten up when it counts. Situational running is where you can't get away from. You can give up a 4-yard run on first down, a 6-yard run on first down. As long as you don't if you get a 0 on second and third, you're fine. So situationally, third down is where you can't give up those runs to those guys. You can't let them get away with that stuff like they did in the last one.